Are you sick of DJs who get paid to get songs played off a set list that exists in the money-filled fists of the fat cat? That's old hat. You don't need that. Let's bring back the good tracks with the real cats who you knew you, and blew you away with the way they could say what they wanted to say every day. Let's bring back the good old days when cruising with the tunes in the afternoons was in, and human beings were human beings who loved the simple things, not being rough, tough, or rich enough to buy all that stuff. When people drove with their windows open and listened to music and had good times rolling, and they loved singing with the radio. Singing with the radio. Let's bring that back. Ramapo 90.3 on the FM dial. While streaming online, you'll find WRPR is by the people for the people. And let's bring back singing with the radio. Singing with the radio.
You're listening to WRPR Mawa.
Now that's a face for radio.
This is Dominic Rogers Cromartie, and you're listening to the Beast of the East on 90.3.
Well, thank you, Dominic Rogers Cromartie. This is indeed the Beast of the East. Ryan Warwick, and just Ryan Warwick, here with you on this Monday, November 7th, 2016, right here on WRPR 90.3 FM, Mawa. I don't know where Scott and Dean are, so this kind of reminds me of, I guess we'll throw it back to, what was it, last year, or fall 2015? Yeah, spring 2015. So let me throw it back really quickly to what we used to do around here.
During our generation.
Yep.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is
Oh, is this the Ryan Warwick show or is it Beast of the East?
I used to move snowflakes by the OZ.
No, don't worry about it. It's still Beast of the East. Ryan Warwick here with you on WRPR 90.3 FM in Mahwah, New Jersey, Ramapo College Radio. Monday, November 7th, 2016, and the New York Giants came away with their third straight victory. The New York Jets, back in the lost column. We actually have not been on the air since the Chicago Cubs won the World Series, so we got to talk about that. And if we have time, Yoenis Cespedes is now a free agent. He opted out of his contract with the Mets. And Aroldis Chapman, well, the Yankees have reached out to his representatives, so possibly a return from the closer who won a title with the Cubs. But first, I want to talk about the New York Jets. Going into Miami yesterday, and I said it last week, division rival is already something that scares you. New stadium, well, renovated stadium, is definitely something that scares you. And the fact that Miami was heading into yesterday, I believe, what's their record now? They're now 4-4 and second in the division. So yesterday they were heading into yesterday's matchup 3-4. Jets were heading in at 3-5. So a team that on paper has been better than you, when you want to talk about records, and we all know the Jets have not been playing well, so you can even say that the Dolphins are the better team. That's a good argument, but Jets come out, and I'm going to try to explain this as best as possible because it stinks when the Giants and Jets both play at the same time. That's like once a year that this happens, that the Giants and Jets both play at the same time. But the big story is that they lost. They fell to 3-6 on the season, and their season is pretty much all but over. Now they have 7 games left. Realistically, they can win. They could win all 7 of these games, believe it or not. But they do have to face the Jets twice. They still have to face Miami again, who has already beaten them. That Miami game, however, is at MetLife. They play Buffalo at MetLife. So they still have 4 division games to go. They're 1-1 in the division. They still have 4 games to go. But assuming that, remember, last year this team went 10-6. they've already matched their loss total from last year. Do you really see this team, A, winning the next 7 games in a row, and B, making the playoffs at 10-6 if they do the first part, which is going to be almost impossible in itself? You still never know what you're going to get with the Rams. I mean, yesterday the crowd was chanting, "We want Goff," but they still have Todd Gurley. And remember, they did start the year 3-1. I didn't think that was on accident per se. And then you have to face the Colts, who beat a solid Green Bay team yesterday. And Aaron Rodgers was not happy with the Packers yesterday and their effort. And their receivers are having trouble. Jordy Nelson had trouble. Joplin had trouble yesterday. They had Ty Montgomery running from the backfield yesterday. The Colts is not an easy win. A couple weeks ago, I said that was a W. But with the way this defense has been playing, their pass defense has not been good. Their pass, the front four on the pass has not been good. They can't get to the quarterback. And against the Colts, who let just about anything get to their quarterback, that's a question mark now. So you play LA next week, bye week, then home against New England on Sunday Night Football. Then home against Indy on Monday Night Football. Then you're at San Fran, which should be a win. You're home against the Dolphins, which I'm going to naturally assume that they split. They're at the Patriots, and then they're home against the Bills to round out the year. The Bills game they can win because, remember, I'll say this about the Giants too. The fact that they won that first game on the road is huge. Because now you're going to be favored, and you're going to be favored an extra 3 points because you're at home. But again, do you really see this team finishing the year 9-7, 10-6 in a playoff race? And the answer is no. Not with the way that they've been playing. It's not rocket science, and it's not news to see that this team has not been playing well. But the fact that they barely got by Cleveland, at Cleveland, again, on the road, but okay. On the road, Cleveland was in a lot of hype with the World Series, but wouldn't you think that the Cleveland hype is toward the Indians and not the Browns? For once, the Jets actually performed well in the second half last week. And we said it Monday. Me, Scott, and Dean, we were all in here. And we didn't even celebrate the win for the Jets. We just trashed them the entire hour. Because had they lost to the Browns, the Jets are already the secondary laughingstock in the NFL, and they have been probably since the butt fumble, to be completely honest with you. The Jets finished 10-6 last year, and were still the secondary laughingstock in the National Football League behind the Cleveland Browns. So they go into yesterday's game. They led 10-7 after the first. Were down 1 at half. Didn't score in the third. They lost by 4, 27-23 final. It's unbelievably bad. Unbelievably atrocious how bad Ryan Fitzpatrick looks. First of all, he threw an interception to, I can't remember his name. The big lineman on Miami. Bobby McClain was his name. Oh, no, that wasn't it. That was in the back of the end zone. Jordan Phillips. Jordan Phillips was the one who intercepted him at around, I think it was the Jets' 30-yard line. How do you not see one of the biggest human beings on planet Earth right in front of you 10 yards away? And I can't remember who the intended target was. I think it was Anunwa. I think. Or no, maybe it was Robbie Anderson. It was Robbie Anderson who was the intended target on that play. And I get Robbie Anderson small. He's 6'3", 190. Not exactly the biggest guy out of the group. A little lanky, he's pretty skinny. He's like me. I'm now up to 6'4", 215, I must say. But there was a time where I was 6'3", 190, and it didn't look like I had an ounce of muscle in my entire body. And it almost still looks like that. But besides the point. Jordan Phillips has It says right here on NFL.com, 335 pounds. Miami defensive tackle. The ball goes, it was actually intended for Jalen Marshall, by the way. I'm looking at the replay right now. And he manages to hurdle over someone. I think he hurdled over Robbie Anderson. He did. I mean, can't blame the guy. He has a $140 on him, so you're going to hit him low. But looking at this replay, don't you see the guy, right? 12 interceptions. That was his 12th. He threw one more on a terrible throw. Brandon Marshall made a great catch, that great one-handed catch that almost hit the ground. And you saw him say on CBS, he mouthed, "Give me the ball." The next play, I think it was intended for Marshall. I can't remember what play it was exactly, but he threw an interception, and everyone knew it was going to be an interception. No, scratch that. It was the defensive pass interference that everyone knew Brandon Marshall was getting the ball, and it was pass interference, but there was still a terrible throw. He has no zip on the ball. He can't hit receivers in stride. You look at the interception behind the end zone, in the back of the end zone, no one was there. And whether that was a miscommunication or not, I'm sorry, this guy can't be your quarterback anymore. He can't be. You lose one more game, you're practically mathematically eliminated. What's the Patriots' record right now? 7-1, right? So they're not mathematically eliminated, but now the Jets' tragic number to officially be out of contention in the division race is now 2. Because the Jets have 6 losses. Let me see if I'm doing this right. No, I think the number is 3. It's either 3 or 4. Because it has to add up to 17. So it's the number of Patriot wins, which is 7, plus the number of Jets losses, which is 6. So the number is actually at 14. 13, excuse me, and the tragic number is 4. So the Jets are this close to being eliminated from the division race, and it's week 9. The season is essentially over for the New York Jets. I know that you want to play hard until you are mathematically eliminated, but this guy leads the league in interceptions and is most certainly not an accident. 13 interceptions in 9 games, got pulled from 1 game, had to sit out a little while yesterday because now he has a sprained MCL, and apparently that's a day-to-day injury. For me, that's a 4 to 6 week injury. And we've said it all along on this show. Do you want Bryce Petty or Ryan Fitzpatrick? You want Fitzpatrick, but not because you like Fitzpatrick more. It's because you just don't have trust in Bryce Petty. It's like the election tomorrow. It's not people like Trump more than Hillary. They just hate Hillary more than they hate Trump, and vice versa. That's exactly what it is. The New York Jets quarterback system is the 2016 election to the general public. Who do you hate more? Who is the lesser of 2 evils? And that's what the Jets quarterback situation is. It's not having more trust in Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's having less trust in Bryce Petty. Bryce Petty is on record saying that he learned defensive schemes from playing Madden. The New York Daily News did a story. Jets backup QB Bryce Petty plays Madden to help improve football IQ. He is an NFL quarterback. My flag football team doesn't even play Madden to graze our football IQ. We watch real life football. And I know that this isn't a joke either, because the New York Daily News did an entire article on it. I'm reading it right now. This article has to be 1,200 words. It has to be. Bryce Petty doesn't even... This is the second paragraph from that article that was released in June. Bryce Petty doesn't even care. After all, the Jets' third-string quarterback isn't merely dropping back to pass. He's attempting a different challenge, controlling a virtual Ryan Fitzpatrick in a video game and explaining the nuances of a cover one defense a split second before they happen on screen. First of all, two issues with that. A, you're playing Madden to learn football. B, you're not even playing as yourself. You're playing as someone else. Maybe you should play as yourself. That way you realize how bad of a quarterback you are, and then you get to realize what aspects of the game you should start to work toward and be better at. When he sees that he's a 68 overall in Madden, maybe he should start taking notes, real-life notes, at practice, at training camp, during bye weeks, watching film. Their bye week can't come soon enough because his team is embarrassment. Ryan Fitzpatrick is an embarrassment. Bryce Petty is an embarrassment, and he played 4 snaps yesterday. This franchise is an embarrassment. Todd Bowles is an embarrassment. Darrelle Revis has become an embarrassment. Sheldon Richardson and Muhammad Wilkerson, they are embarrassments. Darrelle Revis comes to pick up his paycheck and gives zero heart. What does Todd Bowles say about it? Oh, well, Darrelle Revis, we're paying him $17 million a year, maybe more. It's a little unfortunate that we can't try that hard on the football field. Yeah! It is a disappointment. It's an embarrassment. You're an embarrassment. Your team is an embarrassment. Your quarterbacks are an embarrassment. Your quarterback's way of learning the football game are all embarrassments. Not even to you, but to the NFL itself. I'm sick and tired of watching this Jets team play with zero heart. I'm sick and tired of it. And I'm a Giant fan. But you know what? It does get a little annoying coming on this show every single Monday complaining that they have zero heart, complaining that someone who was once the best cornerback in the league plays with no heart. And now I'm coming on this show to say that Sheldon Richardson and Muhammad Wilkerson were suspended for the first quarter, and especially because Muhammad Wilkerson missed his own birthday party. First of all, Sheldon Richardson's already a mess because he was drag racing with a child in his back seat and reeked of marijuana and had a gun on him. If that's me in the car, I'm in jail for 25 to life probably. That's another whole system if you want to talk about the justice system, but I'm not even going to get into that because this is a sports radio talk show. No one on this team plays with heart. No coach on this team coaches with heart. And that all stems to Todd Bowles. Todd, what do you think about Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing an interception to one of the largest human beings on planet Earth? Yeah, well, Ryan has... He struggled a little bit, but we were in contract talks with him all offseason, and we still have trust in him until he gives us a reason not to. He's giving you 13 reasons not to! 13 interceptions in 9 games. That's more than an interception per game. You want to tally that up? That's about 24 interceptions on the season. Let's do that math, actually. 13 divided by 9, 1.44444444. Multiply that by 16, 23 interceptions. And it's not just 13 interceptions. The guy, he can't throw. He's throwing at no one. Can't have a spiral on the ball. Every 3 seconds he gets tackled and he looks like he has no idea where he is. And we made fun of him last week for it. And even yesterday when he limped off the field, he couldn't walk in a straight line. Granted, it was a knee injury, but every time the guy gets touched, he's all over the place. Yeah, well, we have to be really careful with Ryan, and the offensive line has to do a better job, and Fitzpatrick needs to start throwing to Brandon Marshall more, and more people have to come play with heart. How are they going to come play with heart if you have a voice like that and you have no idea how to control your team or how to discipline this team? Well, you do know how to discipline the team because you suspended your 2 best linemen for 1 quarter for missing their own birthday party. I understand that it's a very tough schedule, but I've said it a million times on this show. I'll say it again. This team is not losing because the other team is better. This team is losing because they are a bad football team. They are not playing like the team that was 10-6 last year. They are a 3-6 team on paper. They are a 3-6 team on the field. The more frustrating part is that this team could be 4-5, maybe 5-4. Should have been in Cincinnati. Kansas City was a train wreck that game, and Ryan Fitzpatrick was abysmal. I can't even think of a word worse than train wreck. It's a joke. This team has become a joke. Their quarterbacks are a joke. Their defense is a joke. Their coaches are a joke. The way they play is a joke. Jets fall to 3-6 on the season. Season all but over. Giants with a big victory against the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday by a score of 28-23. Eli Manning 4 touchdowns on the year. Odell Beckham Jr. catching 2 of them. Giants second place in the division, falling behind the Dallas Cowboys, who are 7-1 after their win against the Cleveland Browns. We'll talk about the New York Giants right here on Beast of the East on WRPR 90.3 FM.
Hi, this is Ozzy Osbourne. For many years, you know I've had a drink problem, and I'm trying to battle that problem every single day. But one thing I don't drive my car when I'm drinking. I get someone to drive me. Do not drink and drive. It's the stupidest thing. If you drink, just don't drive. Not only are you going to hurt yourself, you may hurt some other person, and you wouldn't want that on your conscience, would you?
A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
Hi, Shaquille O'Neal for RAD. This is not your normal PSA. Don't be stupid. Don't drink and drive. If you're going to go out and have a good time, it's fine. But designate a driver to drive home. Let's stop the madness. Don't drink and drive.
A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
Listening to WRPR.
So don't you open up that window. Don't you let out the antidote.
Beast of the East on WRPR 90.3 FM Mawa. Ryan Morick here with you in Studio A at Ramapo College of New Jersey. Before we talk about the New York Giants, I want to give a shout out to a former colleague of mine and someone who still remains a pretty good friend of mine, Drew Casey, member of Fordham University, WFUV Sports, currently on the Michael K. Show right now at the Great Sports Debate at his current school, Fordham University, at Keating Hall. He is on the show right now with Michael and Don and Peter Rosenberg. He was a facilitator. He was not a facilitator. What's the word I'm looking for? A moderator for the debate, and now he's actually a guest on the show. So congratulations to Drew. I definitely recommend following him on Twitter. He has done an absolutely incredible job. A guy who he's already made it, if you want me to be completely honest with you. So congratulations to Drew, and keep doing your thing, man. So, New York Giants, 5-3, another ugly win, but they got the job done. Yesterday was huge. if they lose yesterday's game, that means that they fall to 4-4 and 1-2 in the division, and both of those division losses would be at home. And those 2 road games that they would have to play, I think it's in week 16 and 17. Because I know they play Washington at Washington on the road in week 17. And I think the Philly game is the Philly game is week 16. The Washington game is week 17. Back-to-back on the road, final 2 games of the year. So those are going to have huge playoff implications. Huge. And they play Dallas at home December 11th, who they beat on the road. So the fact that they're now 2-1 with a home game left against a team that they beat, obviously you hope that they go 2-1 in these next 3 division games that they have coming up, all in December and January. But the fact that they could be this close to being 0-3 in the division. They only beat Dallas by 1, and Dallas has won 7 in a row. They almost choked again against Philly. It's huge. And their schedule gets pretty easy over the next 3 games. Home against Cincinnati, that's not an easy victory. If they stop A.J. Green, though, I definitely see the Giants winning that game. Home against Chicago, I see the Giants winning that game. Then they're at Cleveland. That should be a victory. And then they're at Pittsburgh. That's going to be a tough matchup. And then they're home against Dallas, home against Detroit, and then they're at Philly and at Washington. I like where this team is right now. I still don't think that their offense looked incredible yesterday. The first half was great, but they also had accounted for 2 big interceptions that put them in great field position. Eli didn't even throw for 100 yards in the fourth quarter yesterday. In the second half, excuse me. So that first half was big for the Giants. They had struggled getting on the board early. 2 weeks in a row where they fell to 10-0. They had fallen to 10-0 against the Ravens. They had fallen to 10-0 against the LA in London. So the fact that they got on the board, and also bad coaching by Philadelphia helped them also. These last 3 wins, I get it. 3-game win streak is huge. 5-3 record is huge with an easy schedule coming up. But this team has a lot of screws that they need to tighten. The offensive line is still a little shaky. The run game is still very shaky. Secondary is still a little bit of an issue. I mean, what did the Eagles do after they were trailing 14-0? They outscored the Giants 23-14 after that. Now, of course, a win's a win if you're the Giants. That's all that matters. But knowing the Giants, they're still... You look at it 5-3, and let's say they do win these next 3 games, 8-3, but that's not going to be a very convincing 8-3 in my eyes. I know that sounds very selfish, and I know that sounds like I'm taking an 8-win season for granted, especially since the fact that the Giants haven't had 8 wins since 2011. But remember, this team, they were a top 8 offense last year. I don't even think they're in the top 15 this year. Let me look it up. NFL team total stats. Here we go. The Giants, I'll do yards per game because some teams have played in 8, some teams have played in 9. The Giants are 21st in the NFL in yards per game. Last year, in that category, they were 8th. Last year, they had 372 yards a game. This year, they have 339.9. So we'll round that up to 340. Points per game. Let's look at that category. The Giants are 23rd. 20.1. Granted, they played a solid LA defense. They played a solid Minnesota defense. But what about the teams where they didn't play good defenses, like Green Bay, like Baltimore? Philly, they put up 28 yesterday, but again, they took advantage of great field position. Dallas, who doesn't have a great defense. They put up 16 against Green Bay. They put up 20 against Dallas. Put up 17 against LA. I mean, this team, their offense looks a lot better on paper, except for the running game, because their running has just been atrocious. But this year, they're averaging 20.1 points a game. That's 23rd in the league. Last year, they were 8th in that category with 26.3. Behind Arizona, playoff team. New Orleans, not a playoff team because of a terrible defense. Pittsburgh, playoff team. Seattle, playoff team. Tampa Bay had 20, between 4th and 5th. Oh, no, excuse me. Now we got points per game. Carolina, 1st in the NFL last year. Made it to the Super Bowl. Arizona, 2nd, playoff team. New England, playoff team. Giants were actually 6th in points per game last year with 26.3. So the teams ahead of them, all playoff teams. Carolina, Arizona, New England, Pittsburgh, Seattle. 7th, Cincy. 8th, New Orleans. 9th, Kansas City. 10th, Washington. So 8 of those 10 teams from last year made the playoffs. The only 2 were the Giants and the Saints. And then you draft Sterling Shepard. You get Victor Cruz back. Eli Manning, 3rd year in a new offense. He's been awesome the first 2 years. And this offense cannot put points on the board. 20 a game? With Odell Beckham Jr.? And Sterling Shepard and Victor Cruz? And Eli Manning? This team can't be putting up 20 points a game. Who's under them? LA is last. Chicago, Houston, Cleveland, Seattle only scoring 18.5 points a game. Jacksonville, Jets, Baltimore, Minnesota. Not exactly great offenses. The Giants should be in the top 10. Let's see points per game this year. Atlanta's number 1. New Orleans, San Diego, Dallas, Oakland, New England, Indy, Buffalo, Carolina, and Philly. Those are the top 10. Atlanta 33.9, Philly 25.3. The fact that the Giants are outside of the top 20 in points per game is abysmal, I think. 161? 161 points they've scored in 9 games. In 8 games, excuse me. I find that very hard to believe. And they're lucky that this defense has been doing the job. But speaking of the defense, Landon Collins can't be the only guy who's succeeding on your defense. Landon Collins leads the team in interceptions, sacks, tackles. A safety should not be leading the team in sacks. Again, the Giants' run defense has been great, but they're still not putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They don't know how to get quarterbacks on their butt. However, if it weren't for the defense, this team would probably be 3-5. Giants are 5-3, but they have a lot to change. They still have a lot of issues that they have to fix. Eli is still not playing well. He still looks afraid to throw the ball. It's not a very convincing 5-3 for me. I thought the Giants were going to be 5-3 at this point in the year. But I didn't think that the offense would be this bad. I also thought that maybe, I don't even know if, well, I thought they were going to lose to Dallas and then beat Washington. But let's look at their schedule again. They beat Dallas, then they beat Atlanta, they beat Washington. No, they lost to Washington, excuse me. And then they had a tough road trip at Minnesota before they started falling apart, and then at Green Bay. And then they've won their last 3. By the way, this is technically a 5-game homestand for The Giants. No, 4 games, excuse me. The Packer game they easily could have won, considering they let up only 23 points. Minnesota, I think everyone knew that was going to be a loss. But you had to beat Washington, because I think the Giants are a better team than the Redskins. I do. LA you beat by a touchdown. You were also down 10-0 in that game and scored 17 unanswered. But Philly, you're up 14-0. You got to put that game out of the water. That's another game that the Giants almost blew against Philly at their own stadium. Miracle of the Meadowlands in 78 with Herm Edwards. Brian Westbrook in 03. Deshaun Jackson in 2010. There's 3 miracles at the Meadowlands, and this was almost the 4th. And by the way, what in the world is Eli doing on 3rd down throwing the ball? Dean and Scott have both been very critical of Ben McAdoo's play calling. I haven't been too harsh about it, but yesterday I was. First play of the game, they sprint to the line of scrimmage, they hand the ball off to Rashad Jennings, gain of 6. Next 2 plays, pass the ball, both incomplete, 3 and out, they punt. The Giants have the most predictable offense also. I mean, yesterday, why run the ball and then it works and then not run it again? Yesterday, we were watching the game and George, who's on here a lot, he predicted the next three plays in a row for the Giants. I think there was a drive where the Giants got pinned at like the 4-yard line, and we switched to the Jet game, and we put back on the Giant game to see that it was 3rd and 9, and George said, oh, it was probably a pass to Will Tye, then a handoff. And it was! Because all the Giants do on 2nd and long is run the ball, which is still beyond me. And then 3rd down and 4, yesterday. This was Eli's 2nd interception. By the way, 17 games in a row where the Giants have turned the ball over. I'd love to see that record in those 17 games. Because 17 would mean that it probably started against New England last year. Maybe a little earlier than that. I don't remember. I don't feel like looking it up right now. But 17 games in a row. That means you've had a turnover in 8 games this year, and somehow you're 5-3. So defense, kudos. But again, 3rd and 4. 1:55 on the clock. Philly has 1 timeout. Didn't they learn from week 1 last year against the Cowboys to run the ball on 3rd down and make Philly waste a timeout? So not only are you risking an interception, which wound up happening, you are risking an incomplete pass, which leads to the clock stopping without Philly using a timeout. And to make matters worse, the ball was intercepted. So, Philly did not waste a timeout. The clock stopped, and the Eagles had the ball at their own at the Giants' 40-yard line. Run the ball, make Philly waste a timeout, and punt it away to the 10-yard line. It's not difficult. The Giants learned the hard way last year what they should do. Even if the ball wasn't intercepted, it was still a bad idea. Even if they got the 1st down, it was still a bad idea. I'm not one of those guys who decides if it was a good idea after the result happens. It's either a good idea or a bad idea, and it'll either work out or it doesn't work out. If I jump off of a bridge and live, does that mean it was a good idea? No! It can't be good or bad after the fact. It could work out. God forbid someone drives home drunk and they get home. Was that a good idea? I know I'm comparing two completely different things, and now it's going way out of context. But seriously, Eli drops back to throw. We actually turned the jet game on. We turned the jet game on when we saw that it was third down. Because I naturally assumed, you should never assume, because if you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. Remember that? I hope my dad's listening. If you don't know what that's from, go watch The Odd Couple. Very funny show back in the early 70s. So I assumed that the Giants were going to run the ball, Philly was going to waste a timeout, pray that Rashad Jennings didn't fumble the ball, and then that was it. And then I would turn the game back on once Philly got the ball and hope for a defensive stand. So what we do in my room is we usually put in two TVs. And because the Giants and Jets play at different times, we'll have either the New York game on our big TV, and then we'll have the red zone on the little TV next to it. But yesterday we obviously couldn't do that. So we put the Jets game on the big TV and the Giant game on foxsportsgo.com on the small TV. The Giant game was far behind because we were watching it online. So I think it was after the Jets' final interception or something. Either way, we shut the Jet game off. And we put the Giants on. So on Fox Sports, second down had just ended. So we turn on the Giant game on the big TV, and we see that the Eagles have the ball at the Giants' 40-yard line. And I said to myself, Jennings must have fumbled. Not Eli threw an interception. I said Jennings must have fumbled. Because who in their right mind would throw the ball in that situation? Apparently the Giants do. Apparently Ben McAdoo does. So the Giant game was still on the small TV, about 2.5 minutes behind, I'd say. I look at the third down play, and I see Eli drops back. And I said, this is how the Eagles got the ball there? They didn't learn from their mistakes. They threw the ball. They still don't know how to manage the clock. I get that the interception wasn't necessarily Eli's fault. It got tipped at the line. But you can't take that risk. Eli had already thrown an interception that quarter. You're more likely to throw an interception than fumble the ball, especially when you're just running into a big pile of 300-pound men. Of course you want to get the first down. Of course you want Philly to call their last timeout so then you can kneel the ball. But are you willing to take that risk? You shouldn't be. And I get that the Giants led up, 20 points in the second half? Not great defense in the second half. No, it was less because they scored a touchdown in the first half. I think they led up, I can't remember right now. And let's not forget the Giants are getting very lucky because the Eagles decided to go for it on fourth down and field goal situations. They went for it, didn't get it both times, and the one time they decided to go for it, the kick was blocked. Bad play calling from the Giants still, and in my opinion, a very unhealthy 5-3. I'm not going to complain that they won. They went from being in last place in the division to being in second place in, They did that in 2 weeks? 2 weeks they went from last to second. And you expected Dallas to win yesterday because they were playing against Cleveland. Let's see the Cowboys' schedule before we go to break. Can they get a hard... Next week, they're in Pittsburgh. So the Giants have to take advantage. Cowboys on the road against a difficult team. Hopefully Ben plays better. He still looks very hurt to me, which happens often because Ben Roethlisberger always rushes back from injury. But hopefully the Giants can do something. And hopefully the luck that they had in 2007 and 2011 can come back. Because right now, they have a 5-3 record, which is not bad. It's actually pretty good. Last year, if the Giants were 5-3 in this At this time last year, I would have been ecstatic. I'm ecstatic now that the Giants are 5-3. It just stinks that the Cowboys are in their division because the Cowboys are playing out of their minds right now. But it's a very unhealthy 5-3. The Giants don't look like a 5-3 team. At least not a 5-3 offense. They look like a 6-2 defense, but they look like a 3-5, 4-4 offense. Give them a couple of lucky plays. Week 2 against the Saints, that's who they beat, not the Falcons, excuse me. Week 2 against the Saints, the blocked field goal return for a touchdown by Jenkins. Yesterday, bad play calling. 4 interceptions from Case Keenum in London. And you got a 5-3 team. It all adds up. Beast of these right here on WRPR 90.3 FM. Ryan Warwick here with you. We'll talk about the World Series because we have not done that yet. Cubs, first time in 108 years. That will have time for Cespedes and Chapman talk, but we'll try to squeeze it in. I'll try to squeeze it in right here on WRPR 90.3 FM.
.3 Ramapo Radio, WRPR Mawa. Ramapo! Are you sick of DJs who get paid to get songs played off a set list that exists in the money-filled fists of the fat cat? That's old hat. You don't need that. Let's bring back the good tracks with the real cats who you knew you, and blew you away with the way they could say what they wanted to say every day. Let's bring back the good old days when cruising with the tunes in the afternoons was in, and human beings were human beings who loved the simple things, not being rough, tough, or rich enough to buy all that stuff. When people drove with their windows open and listened to music and had good times rolling, and they loved singing with the radio. Singing with the radio. Let's bring that back. Ramapo 90.3 on the FM dial. While streaming online, you'll find WRPR is by the people for the people. And let's bring back singing with the radio.
No alcohol, if you don't stop, I'm gonna. Girl, you make me want.
So the Cy Young Award finalists came out. And Rookie of the Year finalists. Let's take a quick look. Let's see, we got Rookie of the Year. NL Rookie of the Year, Corey Seager, Kenta Maeda, and Trey Turner. Give me Corey Seager every day and twice on Sunday. AL Rookie of the Year, Sanchez, Naquin, and Michael Fulmer. I'm not even being biased. I'm going to say Sanchez. It was Fulmer all year. And I understand some people are going to say, how are you going to vote for a guy who played in 2 months in the league? You know what? Then blame the MLB for making the rule. I'm sorry. Blame the MLB for making the rule. Gary Sanchez is qualified. If Michael Fulmer wins Rookie of the Year, what are people going to say? Oh, it's the rookie of 4 months instead of 2 months? He qualifies. And you know what? Normally I wouldn't pick a guy who was in the league for 2 months. But what Gary Sanchez did this year was, not only was it great, it was historical. We might never see that again. We never saw it. Give me Sanchez in AL Rookie of the Year. National League Cy Young, Lester, Hendricks, and Scherzer. We talked about it a little while ago. I think a little after Jose Fernandez had passed, because a lot of people were saying that he might get it posthumously. It depends on what you like. Hendricks is not a strikeout pitcher, but he has a very low ERA. Scherzer, pretty much the opposite. Lester, a little bit in the middle. Depends on what you want. Kluber, Porcello, and Verlander for the American League. Give me Verlander. He's top 3 in every category. Kluber and Porcello are not. Those are my picks. But the most important one was that the Chicago Cubs won the World Series for the first time since 1908. Wow. First of all, this is the most overmanaged World Series ever. No pitcher went 7 innings from either team. Game 7, I thought Joe Madden was a joke. He took out Kyle Hendricks after 4 innings. Took out John Lester way too early, and we all know how much he overused Aroldis Chapman. Very poor job. And we saw that Andrew Miller and Aroldis Chapman were both completely overworked. Miller finally gets hit off of in Game 7. Chapman slider after slider after slider after slider in Game 7. But it wound out to be probably the greatest game ever. My top 2, honestly, I think my top 3 best baseball games ever are 2003 American League Championship Series Game 7, 2011 World Series Game 6, 2016 World Series Game 7. 03 Aaron Boone, great comeback by the Yankees against Pedro. Grady Little leaving Pedro in a little too early. And that game was what made me realize to never fall asleep early, because I fell asleep that night. I was living in Florida. I came up to visit, and I slept at one of my friends' houses. And we fell asleep in like the 5th inning. We said, yeah, they're going to lose. Whatever. We wake up, and we saw the bottom line on ESPN that they won. I'll never forget it. 2011 Game 6, down to the final strike, and David Freese with the triple, tying the game, and then walk off, and the Cubs, and then the Cardinals wound up winning the World Series. NL Manager of the Year, Dusty Baker, Joe Madden, and Dave Roberts. I said Dave Roberts even before the postseason started, so don't think that Game 7 is going to make me change my mind about Joe Madden. And by the way, it's a regular season award. Dave Roberts won the division with Clayton Kershaw out 3 months. Tell me how that happens. And the Dodgers made it to the championship series. Did Mattingly ever get that far? He might have, but every one of Mattingly's teams always failed to meet expectations. I don't think a lot of people had expectations for the Dodgers, especially considering the fact that the Cubs are in the National League. I think the Dodgers met expectations, maybe surpassed them. They definitely did not fail to meet them. But going back to the World Series, this game was incredible. Dexter Fowler, first at bat, 4th pitch of the game, monster home run to dead center field. Javier Baez, monster shot. David Ross, monster shot. And then Chapman comes in, and then Rajay Davis with a shot. It was unbelievable. This was an incredible game. And the best part about it, I mean, some people were rooting for Cleveland, but the majority of the people in this country were rooting for the Cubs, and rightfully so. The best part about this title is all of the stories that we're hearing. Yeah, I get it. Cleveland just won a title, but you also have to remember, I mean, the Giants and the Devils, they made the Super Bowl and the Stanley Cup in the same year. 4 months, 5 months apart from each other. When the Devils made the Stanley Cup, I wasn't saying to myself, hey, if the Devils win, it's fine. I just celebrated a Super Bowl victory. No. You treat each team differently. And I'm going to say the same thing for the Cubs, too, because the Blackhawks just won a Stanley Cup. What was it? Last year, they won a Stanley Cup. 2 years ago, excuse me. No, was it? Hold on. No, it was last year that they won the Stanley Cup. So there are Cubs fans who were just celebrating a Stanley Cup victory. There are Cubs fans who are probably bigger Blackhawk fans than they were Cub fans. But the fact that the actual team did not win in every year, every time of the year, every baseball season, you say to yourself, the Indians haven't won in 70-plus years. The Cubs haven't won in 100-plus years. You don't think about other championships. Cleveland more so, because they hadn't won a championship, the entire city, in 52 years, and the Cavs finally gave them one. Maybe if Cleveland hadn't won a title, if the Cavs didn't win the NBA Finals, then maybe more people would have been pulling for Cleveland. But you have to remember at the same time, every team is treated differently. I know that's weird to think, but every team is treated differently. But going back to what I was saying, the best part about this is all of the stories that we're hearing. All of the videos being tweeted. All of the videos ESPN is posting. There was a girl about 10 minutes after they won the title who tweeted a video of her grandparents celebrating. 81 years old. They were finally celebrating a Cubs World Series. And he was saying, I can't believe they did it. There was a video that went viral of a man who was listening to the game on the radio next to his father's grave. There have been so many videos. There was a thing that said that a 108-year-old woman, probably the only person on this planet Earth to be alive for the last 2 Cubs World Series titles. It's just things like that gives you goosebumps. And they said that the Cubs parade was the 7th largest human being gathering in the world or the country. I can't remember what it was, but they had millions and millions and millions of people. I went to 3 parades. I went to the Giants parades, and I went to the Yankees parades. I think the first Giants parade was probably the best one, considering they had won their first Super Bowl in about, 17 years. My first Super Bowl win of my lifetime. And realistically, my first title that I ever really got to really celebrate, because I don't remember the Yankees winning in 96, obviously, 98, 99, and 2000. I don't remember those. I remember the Devils winning in 03 a little bit. But the Giants winning the Super Bowl was really my first time celebrating one of my team's titles. And they had just been the 18-0 New England Patriots. That parade was great. The Yankees parade was great because that was the first time that the Yankees had won a title that I really remembered. And for those of you who know me, the Yankees are through and through my favorite team of all time. Scott said last week he doesn't consider me a diehard Giant fan. He considers me an avid Giant fan and a diehard Yankee fan. I can agree with that. Even though I can't handle to miss a Giant game, but that's also because there are only 16 of them. But I can't handle to miss a Yankee game. But anyway, the fact that millions and millions and millions of people went to Chicago, people in Chicago on rooftops, and they dyed the water, the Chicago River blue. It was an unbelievable 3 days for Chicago. It was. Coming down from 3-1, losing the first 2 games at your own park. How many people thought that Chicago was going to win the World Series after losing games 3 and 4? I said that the winner of Game 3 was going to win the World Series, especially if it were the Indians. Because the Indians won a game in Chicago, the first World Series game in 71 years. And then Corey Kluber was on the mound the next night, and they won that game. NL MVP. Oh, by the way, AL Manager of the Year. Jeff Bannister, Terry Francona, and Buck Showalter. Give me Francona. NL MVP. Bryant, Murphy, Seager. I am personally going to go with Bryant, AL MVP, Altuve, Betts, and Trout. That's tough. That's tough. I think if you want to go best year, you go with Trout. But if you really believe in the most valuable thing in postseason teams, then I think you have to go Mookie Betts. But going back to the World Series, though, incredible. Absolutely incredible. And Joe Buck's call. A lot of people, including myself, make fun of him for being monotone. Not last Wednesday night. Pure emotion from Joe Buck. His voice cracked during the call. And Chris Bryant smiling as he's fielding that final out. And I said it time and time again. Chris Bryant's 23 years old. Anthony Rizzo's 27 years old. Javier Baez and Addison Russell are 22, 23 years old. They've been in the league for 3 years. Chris Bryant, his rookie year was last year. Even they feel like they hadn't won a title in 100+ years. Anthony Rizzo was crying introducing David Ross. It was probably crying also because he knows how much happiness he gave this fan base. It was one of the greatest things I've ever watched in sports. Goosebumps. Goosebumps. Flat out. And this is why sports are great. Because you can't get this type of emotion anywhere else. Beast of the East on WRPR 90.3 FM. Thank you very much for tuning in. Go out and vote tomorrow. Please exercise your right. This country matters. Your vote matters. I don't care who you vote for. Just vote. Exercise your voice, I guess. We're out tomorrow because we are voting, but we'll be back here on Wednesday. It's not goodbye. See you later. So long and take care, everybody.